Hello, Yitzy. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Right on. Thanks for coming on. Sorry for the mix-up, but I'm glad you're here. You're calling in from Israel, yeah?
Yeah.
So, Yitzy, before we get started, do you want to give our community a quick background into yourself, your career trajectory, the work that you've done, and how you ultimately made that step into Web3?
Yeah, sure. Um, I've been a lawyer for the past 8 years. Started off as a high-tech lawyer doing capital markets and M&A initially, and then moved over into more commercial roles. I was acting as the external counsel for, I don't know, like 60 different tech companies. And when you work in tech, you see all various trends in tech, ad tech, ag tech, well tech, green tech, fem tech, I don't know, all different tech trends. And yeah, they come and go. Some are more exciting than others. A lot of times it's like you could apply the same legal agreements and rationale to the different subsectors of whatever tech it is. But one that really stood out to me and wasn't just another trend was blockchain. Starting in 2016 and then later in 2018 with the ICO bubble, started to work with a lot of crypto clients. And I was servicing more on the commercial side, but I was working very closely with the financial regulation team. And then ultimately, a year and a half ago, decided to take a jump, and together with my partner, who was at the financial regulation team of my firm, doing exclusively crypto stuff, we decided to start a practice that focuses almost in its entirety on the blockchain and crypto sector. And that's what we do today. We service crypto companies, investors, entrepreneurs, people looking to come into the space, exchanges, and we take a very different approach, I would say, than most legal practitioners. In that, while we're Israeli lawyers and we're based in Israel, we're in no for no in no intents and purposes an Israeli law firm. We recognize that most of these products are decentralized, and so our services are decentralized as well. We, provide a broad regulatory and legal umbrella as to the approach for structuring our company's products and their legal structures and their tax structures, because we recognize that they're exposed to multiple regulatory frameworks as well.
Okay, so working in tech, you kind of saw this trend heading into, and I want to get more into what you guys do for these products, but you guys got into the blockchain and cryptocurrency sphere. What are some of the more exciting developments in this field that you've seen over the past few years? And also lead that into what you're helping a lot of these projects and products with respect to your firm.
Um, I just clarify the question. You're asking generally about blockchain, or or asking about blockchain legal?
I'm asking about your experience in the industry and what have been some exciting developments. What have you kind of seen over the last few years of being in Web3? What excites you about the space?
Well, I mean, I think that the exciting thing is that there's never a dull moment, really. Everything is new, everything's exciting. There's almost no legal products that have been tried and tested multiple times. Everybody's doing something for the first time. If it's structuring a DAO, almost no two DAOs are the same. Even commercial agreements, blockchain just kind of like changes the way that everything is perceived. And because the regulatory frameworks are evolving, because the company's products are evolving, and because the makeup of the users is evolving as well. So what was true for yesterday is not necessarily true for today. So constantly having to innovate and just figure out different ways to um, keep up to date with the space and with the products.
Mm-hmm. And you said even though you're based in Israel, you are serving a lot of products and builders that are outside of the country. What are some of the
That's
most
right.
common? What are some of the most common countries that builders are from? What regions are you typically serving?
So we have clients from all over Asia, a lot from Singapore, clients from all over Europe, North America, and obviously Israel as well.
And are these mainly DAOs? Are they mainly protocols? What kind of legal advice are they typically seeking from you?
I'm sorry, you need to give me a minute. I have a crisis just erupted here. Give me 1 second, okay?
Yeah, no worries at all. Hey, Acti, I don't know if you're there, but I I really find it interesting. We've had so many attorneys on at this point, and it seems like um, it seems like such a broad spectrum of work and activity that they and the services that they provide people in the industry, especially a rapidly evolving industry.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's because of all the different rules, different countries, different projects. Like Easy was hinting at, no two protocols, no two teams, no two demands are the same. Everybody wants something, and it's all new. So of course, it's expected. So I love that there are more consultants, more lawyers, more people that are getting involved. People are starting to take it seriously, and I hope they would have started, sooner than 2016, 2017 when the whole ICO craze started, right? But it's good that we have them now on, and it's going to be a tough terrain for them as well, not just for us going forward.
Sorry, I'm back. Because we got messed up on the times. It was supposed to be in an hour from now. I I'm at my kids' school. My kids' school. They have like an event going on, so I just quickly went to hide in the car, but they found me. So,
Yeah, no,
um,
no worries at all. So that actually leads me, Yitzi, to my next question. And you're working with different regions, different countries, all kinds of different protocols. What are some of the biggest legal challenges that you guys have faced, and how have you guys addressed these challenges as they've come?
yeah. So, like I said, it's not one thing or the other. Literally every single thing, things that would typically be mundane tasks in the non-blockchain sphere become more complicated. Um, most tech companies have option plans for the employees, but if you grant your employees tokens, so then you're going to give them options to tokens, and then just structuring that vis-a-vis the local tax authorities um, and implementing it as part of your corporate structure requires, you know, an entirely different approach. So everything that we've become accustomed to in the standard tech world takes a completely different twist and requires, a whole entirely different new thought processes. So nothing's simple anymore, but it's fun because it requires, a lot more creativity and imagination and innovation.
Yeah, I'd imagine you certainly have to be more versatile than the average attorney. I was more curious about specific instances, like ones that you can share, where you guys have kind of been left scratching your heads in the beginning and found ways to maneuver around it and ultimately solve the problem.
I think DAO structuring is just a great example. I mean, to date, I think we could. I think there are very few DAOs that have been structured appropriately. And even throwing around the term DAO, I can't tell you how many times I've bought an NFT and then I join the Discord and somebody's like, "Oh, welcome to the DAO," and I'm like, "What? Like, what is a DAO, right? How many people who claim to be part of a DAO actually understand what the significance of being part of a DAO is? That you, in all likelihood, share unlimited shared liability with everybody else who's part of the DAO. And so I don't think people should be throwing that term around so lightly, and they really need to understand on a deeper level what it actually means. But when it comes to actually structuring a DAO, understanding how to do it in a fashion that will ultimately lead to a fully decentralized structure is a very challenging thing.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't echo that louder. I, especially during the bull run, would see so many people trying to turn things into DAOs that didn't need to be DAOs. What are, in your opinion, having this experience, what are some practical use cases for DAOs? And also, what are some times where you've seen someone trying to build a DAO and you're like, why would this need to be a DAO?
I'm actually a big fan of DAOs as a model if done properly. So it's not that it's not that I've said so often, oh, this shouldn't be a DAO. What I do see is a lot of times people wanting to issue tokens where you don't really, need a token, and you'll ask the founding team why are we implementing a token launch here, and they'll be like, oh, I've always just kind of wanted to have my own token. So. Um, but a DAO as a model for governance is actually a great use case. So I wouldn't say that there's an over DAOification of instances. So it's not an issue of, oh, you shouldn't be having a DAO, but rather is this the way you really want to structure your DAO, and is it actually serving its purpose the way you intended to?
Got it. Okay. What are your thoughts on smart contracts? Right. So as smart contracts increase in popularity, would love to know what you think about legal questions around contract enforceability and liability, and how you see the law evolving, crypto law evolving to address challenges around smart contracts.
I think smart contracts are great. I think that they can solve a lot of existing problems that we have. I think they should be implemented more. Again, these are all very broad questions, so I don't have a definitive answer for you. But I think that smart contracts will definitely be a big part of our future. It's just an issue of implementing them appropriately.
So this might be another broad question, but you mentioned having previously...
You're going really broad today.
You mentioned having previously worked in M&A. Curious to know in what ways you see crypto used in corporate transactions and M&A transactions.
I mean, I guess just as a form of payment. More and more people who have adopted crypto as part of their products and services are also using them as a method for payment. So, I mean, we see this as people paying service providers. I imagine, I haven't been involved in any transactions, but I imagine that there are people who are acquiring businesses and paying for them in crypto.
Right on. Okay, so I wanted to talk a bit about regulation. And regulation, I know, is also kind of a broad topic, but wanted to talk about specifically your thoughts on how a few regions and a few different countries are regulating. So let's start with Dubai. What are your thoughts on how Dubai is regulated so far with respect to Web3?
I'm not really in a position to speak on like Dubai regulations.
Okay. Thoughts on what about Singapore or Europe?
I can't speak broadly about like any jurisdictional framework. I would take every each company on a case-by-case basis, learn and understand the frameworks. I'm not licensed to practice law in any of these places, so in each and every one of these places I have local partners that I work with. So I'm by no means an expert on Dubai or Singaporean law, and I wouldn't propose to be.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily asking for like an expert opinion. It's just always interesting to ask an attorney what they think about regulatory frameworks in countries that are at least making the steps, or regions that are at least making the steps to build and set up laws that builders can adhere to. I typically compare the US to Dubai to Singapore to Europe, even that's recently been trying to roll out MICA. But we can move on if you'd like to just kind of get away from regulation in different in different countries and regions.
Yeah, listen, I asked you what we were going to talk about, and you weren't really 100% clear. So I'm happy to just roll with the conversation. I do kind of find it a little bit eerie, the whole speaking on spaces where like you shut off your mic all the time, and I just kind of feel like I'm alone here in this empty closet. But
you're saying like my mic is shut off and I'm letting
whenever
you
you shut off your mic, I feel like I'm just standing alone on a mountain. It's very eerie.
Oh, no worries. I mean, I can keep my mic on. There might be a bit of feedback, but I'm happy to
whatever works.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation with my mic on. And yeah, I think I'm a bit broad in my approach. So I said I was looking to cover, your origin story, your career trajectory, how you got into crypto.
So let me throw a topic out that
Sure.
that might be fun to talk
let's
about.
do it.
I sent you a tweet thread that I put out. I think it was middle of last week. But I think this is a great example of how a lot of stuff in this space is new and evolving and requires innovation on many, many levels. So being involved in the crypto space and, just seeing the entire spectrum of let's say call it the crypto community, okay, which I would say is made up of various different players. So you have the degens, and you have the sophisticated Web3 investors, and you have the blockchain entrepreneurs, and you have the exchanges, and there's a whole different facets of communities that are set up within crypto. So seeing them all and having had an opportunity to work with most of them, if not all of them, I'm always looking for ways to relate to different subsections of crypto on a deeper level. So one of the subsectors which I worked very closely with at the beginning of last year was the NFT sector, which was like exploding. There were literally, I don't know, I think there was at some point on OpenSea, there were 400 NFT collections being launched daily. And as you can imagine, I was working with a fair amount of those. And what I was and I'm still amazed to see is that so many of these collections have never spoken to a lawyer, never taken the time to actually, structure their IP, to understand whether or not they own their IP, for their users to understand what they could do with the IP. So if you're a PFP collection, for example, and you hired some dude on Fiverr or Upwork to prepare the initial artwork or part of the artwork for your collection, if you didn't sign a formal IP assignment agreement with this guy, then your collection probably doesn't 100% belong to you, or may not belong to you at all. And if you bought into one of these collections and there aren't representations by the founding team in the terms and conditions, and there aren't clear licensing terms as to what you're allowed to do with it, then you may not even have the rights that you think that you have. So many of these collections haven't actually taken the time to give thought to these things. So I was trying to think how I could communicate this better to these NFT collectors, communities. And so I launched my own NFT collection last week called Order in the Court, where basically you purchase an NFT and the NFT gives you access to certain legal services. In this case, like I said, it's geared towards the NFT creator community. So if you launched a collection and you never took the time to advise with a lawyer on setting up your IP and on understanding whether or not you have the appropriate agreements in place and communicating what rights your holders have. So you could buy an NFT as part of the order in the court collection, and once you buy the NFT, you redeem a set of legal services from me. And after you receive these legal services, which basically bring you up to speed on where your IP is and in terms of transparency with your community as well, the NFT becomes a certificate of sorts that you put on your website, and it says, I took the time to advise with an IP lawyer and put my IP in place. And I think that that's just a great example of how not only entrepreneurs, but also service providers could be innovating in this space, could be, take the time to understand blockchain technologies and understand the space, the lingo in the space to communicate their products better.
Okay, so some questions.
Please.
First of all, very cool, and we had Aquarium panel around IP rights in crypto, especially around NFTs, and I from what I gathered, it was a pretty murky, I guess, part of the law. But how do you deal with IP rights for a project that, like, is it different based on country to country, right? How can someone from, I don't know, Singapore versus someone in Malaysia versus someone in Argentina get the same kind of legal services, or rather certificate, to guarantee that their NFT project belongs to them?
It's a good question. So in terms of registering rights, it differs from country to country, but because typically these things are distributed on a mass, global scale, there are frameworks that are in place for internationalizing it. For example, in the trademarks regime, the copyright regime, there are international frameworks that are set up where you could basically magnify the rights that you have locally on a global scale. But I'm not even talking about registered rights. Like, I'm not talking about trademarks and patents. I'm talking about just having a simple licensing agreement in place. In other words, if I sat down and drew a picture right now, I just created IP. Okay, I don't have to register it anywhere. The picture that I drew is my IP, and if I want to give you the right to use that IP, okay, be it to display it on the wall in your living room, or to print copies and sell it outside your local grocery, or make a movie out of the character that I just drew, then I would draw up a license agreement where I give you a license to the following rights. So those concepts are global. The agreement that we would draft would be governed by a certain law that we would determine, but it wouldn't differ very greatly on from the commercial side, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
So you launched this order in the court, and how many people have minted an NFT so far?
10,000. No, I'm just joking. Nobody. Nobody. And I think that the biggest barrier here is, getting to people. So I doubt that any NFT collector in the world knows that this exists. And if the NFT creator in the world knows that this collection exists, I doubt if anybody outside of the 200 or 300 people who saw my tweet know that it exists. But the first step was making it easier, making these services more accessible. So lawyers are seen as uptight and unrelatable. They don't understand the industry. So just by launching this product, I believe that I'm conveying a message to NFT degen creators, like, I get you, okay? And not only do I get you, you don't have to call my secretary and schedule a meeting with some dude in a suit on Tuesday in 3 months from now. You could just buy this NFT and you have immediate access to my calendar, and I'll get on the call with you tomorrow, and you'll have the products within the end of the week. And it's literally as simple as buying an NFT on OpenSea. So really, every single NFT project should be buying one of these, but they don't know about it yet.
Okay, so first of all, what's the minting cost?
So there are 3 packages. One is just a call where you advise with, where we get on a call, we discuss what you've done today, where your project is now, where you're planning on going, just to understand what your issues are and what you need to do, okay? And pointing out like, okay, well, in order for you to be compliant, you need to do A, B, C, and D, and that costs half an ETH. Then there's another one where we do the first thing. We sit down, we review your project, and then I put in place all the agreements that you need with service providers, draft, privacy policy if needed, and terms and conditions, licensing terms and conditions with your community, and a nice graphic for you to distribute to your community that explains it nicely. I think that's 2.5 ETH, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's 1.5. I can't remember.
I'll read them out for you. You have the Rainmaker, that's 2.5 ETH. The Counselor, which is 3.5 ETH, and the Shark, which is 0.5 ETH. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to break it down.
No, thank you. That was very helpful. And so then the 3.5. So most people don't realize that besides the IP, there's like other quote unquote bigger issues. Okay, so one issue is IP, okay, which is your greatest asset, and if you haven't taken the time to do these things, so then it might be in jeopardy because it's not yours because you didn't get it properly assigned to you, or it's not your community's because you didn't appropriately assign to them. Now let's put IP on the side. We discussed that enough. Then there's the issue of securities laws. Many creators and collectors come from the U.S. And in the U.S., you have a very strict securities regime that may or may not. I mean, yesterday, Gary Gensler of the SEC came out and said basically every token is a security except for Bitcoin. I don't think he was specifically addressing NFTs, which require a little bit more thought and attention, but there are still many NFT collections that could fall within the realm of securities because of all kinds of stupid ass shit, excuse my language, that creators do, like saying, you buy my NFT and it will give you partial ownership to my house, and I'll distribute royalties on a weekly basis. Those kind of things are not smart. And if you have all kinds of things like that, where you're guaranteeing that the NFT is going to be worth X, and you're guaranteeing that you're going to distribute profits of Y, then you may be running the risk of being determined that you're a security. And so the next level beyond just putting the agreements in place is doing like a full-on review of all your roadmap and of all your announcements on Discord and any other communications that you made broadly to your community, just to make sure that you're not that you have minimum exposure there.
Okay, I love this, and we should get some eyes on it. What is some of your thoughts about marketing this, getting exposure to it, getting the community?
I'm open for anything. I literally was up late one night and I just kind of like ran with this, did all the graphics on myself, put the site together, deployed it on OpenSea, and then put out a tweet. And I haven't done anything else besides that. But yeah, I do think that
it's really cool. I think this is going to change the way that professionals offer services to their prospective clients through an NFT marketplace, where you kind of have each package broken down. And so let's say that I was to buy an NFT. Let's say I bought the Rainmaker, and what would happen next? I would contact you.
So there's unlockable content there, and then you'd get like a calendar link, and you'd schedule. It's like a very open one that like supersedes everything else in my calendar, and we'd schedule a call. I think it's like clocked for an hour, but I would be very generous at the time. We'd sit and we'd discuss everything about your project, and then we'd walk away with, I'd walk away with action items that I would need to take, and put draft agreements with whoever contributed to the IP, put together licensing terms and privacy policies if it's relevant, and yeah.
How long have you been? You said you launched this. How long ago?
Thursday
when you
night.
shared the tweet?
Wednesday, yeah.
So it's fresh. It's fresh out of
It's fresh.
the
It's fresh.
out of the
Yeah, I'm
smart
telling you, nobody
contract.
knows about it yet.
I mean, I can see a lot of people using this. I would like to see once you start to market it, how fast they get bought up. You said there's 1,000. Um, is it
Yeah, but
1,000
it
of
doesn't. I mean, it
each?
doesn't matter. I can make a
You
thousand
keep minting
more.
more.
It's not like it's not. There's no like resale value for these. In fact,
I was gonna
they're
say,
not
yeah.
intended to be resold because it's meant to serve as like a certificate of compliance of sorts.
Are there any other personal projects that you've worked on that you built
Like this, you're saying?
like this, or like anything else in the industry that you personally built? I'm just curious.
No, I don't think so. I serve as an advisor on the board of a lot of companies and projects. So my input has gone into the end products, but I haven't actually like done anything start to finish myself.
Are you able to share which ones?
One of them used to be a source of pride.
Yeah.
Celsius. I worked on Celsius's ICO, and then was their counsel or one of their counsels up until I started my own practice. So yeah, it used to be like my claim to fame, but now less so.
I think a lot of us in that situation would have felt the same way.
Yeah.
You mentioned so U.S. securities laws. You mentioned that our regime is quite strict. Do you think that every token except Bitcoin? I mean, was even bundling Ethereum in there is a security?
So Ethereum was never considered a security by the SEC until recently when they moved to proof of stake. I can't remember who it was, or it might have been a court somewhere in the United States that came out with a statement saying that because the majority of validators for proof of stake are in the US, so then it would be then any transaction on Ethereum would be considered as having been conducted in the US, and then it was kind of like a slippery slope from there. Like before that, ETH and BTC were like in their own realm, and then like ETH slowly kind of has been more heavily scrutinized. But again, this is just Gary Gensler. He's entitled to his own opinions. I don't think just because he views everything as a security, it means that is so. I mean, if you want to run a Howey analysis on each and every token starting with ETH, I think we could probably knock quite a few off that list.
Touche. So I think that if Order in the Court does well, you can start to broaden the legal services that you offer through NFTs. And I'm just speculating here.
This
and
is
I,
just like an experiment. And like I said, like the main point here was to be able to communicate to NFT creators by, speaking their language kind of thing. Like this is easy. Like just buy an NFT. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we pinned it to the top of the Twitter space, and
thank you.
I really do. I think that this trend is going to catch on. If people haven't already been doing this, selling services via NFTs. It doesn't have to even be legal services. It's any kind of professional financial services or any kind of services that people want to purchase. You buy it through a JPEG, and you go from there.
Yeah.
So, are you able to comment, Yitzy, on the what's that?
I'm saying the first one was featured here.
And the first one was featured
aquarium.
here. I'm gonna see if we can get some more eyes on it. Are you able to comment, Yitzy, on the regulatory framework in Israel?
It's slow, and it's worse than the regulatory framework. I guess they go hand in hand. It's slow, and it's really not a very attractive place for companies to incorporate and innovate for the blockchain space, mainly because of the banking. It's also interesting. We had ETH Tel Aviv 2 weeks ago, and I learned an interesting fact that I think 30% of all crypto companies, in other words, companies that are developing products for the crypto space, are Israel based. So there's like a ton of innovation happening here, generally, even more specifically for the blockchain space. But even still, it's almost impossible to off-ramp crypto into your Israeli bank account, which is just a nightmare. And the reason for this is because the regulators in Israel just can't get their can't agree on anything. So we have the AML regulator and the tax authorities and the securities the securities authority and the overseer of the banks all have their own opinion, and they can't seem to coexist with one another. So every single crypto conference here in Israel, where all the regulators are invited to take part in a panel, like a huge fight erupts with, you know, everybody getting angry at the banks and saying it's not fair. Why can't we bank here? And the banks say, what do you want from me? The tax authorities are telling me this. The AML authority is telling me that. The security authority is telling me something else. And then it just like gets into this whole fist fight. It's really quite entertaining, actually. But it's very, very, very frustrating, especially since there's such a big crypto space here and there's so much innovation happening for crypto here. But banking is just, I understand the banks as well. The banks say, you know, we're for-profit entities. We don't want to start messing around with your crypto if we're going to get massive fines from the regulators tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I don't blame them. I just think it's unfortunate that we can't all be friends.
Yeah, no doubt. Just curious, are these disagreements, for lack of a better term, televised on and can people actually watch this happening in real time?
No, it's more like Israel, like I said, very active in the blockchain space. There's like crypto events happening weekly, and it's always the same guys show up, and it's the same representatives from the regulators and the same. You know, there's like a forum that represents all the blockchain technology companies and the entrepreneurs. Everybody comes, and we have the same conversations. It's good fun. I'm going to one tomorrow, actually. I don't believe that it's televised. No.
No doubt. Okay, so Israel's still kind of like the U.S. needs to get it together. And I know that Israel's a massive tech hub, juggernaut of a tech hub. So, or at least Tel Aviv is, and so
I'm
it assuming
is huge.
Quite a few crypto enthusiasts out there. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it is. You're absolutely right. It's a huge tech hub and crypto hub, and tons of innovation happening here. Just not in the way of banking. I got to drop off in 4 minutes. I'm sorry.
No worries at all. It's honestly been a pleasure having you, man. And I'm getting my social media team to retweet this and get some eyes on it. We wanna blow this up for you because I think it's a really cool service. I think that
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I think that this is going to catch on, right? As people's lives become more and more software based, as people spend more time online, as people get more into crypto, as they inevitably will, in my opinion. Buying, as I echoed before, buying services, legal services via an NFT, a PFP, or any other kind of professional services via PFP is going to become a trend. So it's cool to see you be the trailblazer, and we're really happy to get some eyes on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Yitzy, if you ever want to come back and talk about something more specific, I'm happy to do that. We can talk in DMs, and we can go from there. But you're welcome on our podium anytime.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite, and I appreciate the opportunity to, launch my NFT collection. And
yeah, I hope it's really well.
I thank you. I appreciate that, and hopefully we'll have opportunities to speak in the future.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, man.
Have a great time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Whale Coin Talk community. That was Yitzy Hammer. Really enjoyed that one. Remember that everything you hear on these broadcasts meant for educational purposes only. Nothing is financial advice. So be safe out there, and we'll see you all later today. Bye-bye.